Good evening,
Hello,
and
children and
welcome to
families.
another fireside chat.
And we have both fires going. One up, one down.
Because it is very cold.
It is very cold. It's crunchy. That's how cold it is. It is crunchy outside. Lots of crunching going on.
Step on the ground, the ice just crunches right beneath your feet. It's the strangest thing ever.
It is, absolutely. Your eyes are like green, Sylvia, in the camera. Make sure you guys look at her eyes. They turned green. It's very cool. It matches her shirt. Um, so, as an aside, we're going to talk about the Sacrament of Reconciliation.
Reconciliation.
So, what is the definition from the Book of Wisdom, also known as the Catechism of the Catholic Church?
Da-da-da-da-da.
Woo! All right, Father, read away.
The sacramental celebration.
Remember what they said about you talking louder.
The sacramental
You can move the book here.
celebration.
Yay!
Sorry. Hello?
Hello.
Try this again.
The sacramental celebration in which, through God's mercy and forgiveness, the sinner is reconciled with God and also with the church, Christ's body, which is wounded by sin. So when we sin, we're not just hurting ourselves, we're hurting God, and we're actually hurting others. I think it says that in the final judgment, we get to see what our sin did to those around us.
Yes.
We see it through our sin through God's eyes.
More specifically, the mystical body of Christ. So, let's be very distinct. We are each part in our baptism of Christ's mystical body in the world. So,
Yes.
maybe I'm a nose or an ear cell in his body. I don't know. Maybe I'm a mouthpiece. I don't know. So I'm hoping to be hands, feet, and mouth in the world. So anyway, any of my sins are going to impact the rest of the body. So if I keep my part Christ-like, like our Lord, it's easier for the rest of the body to get on board too. So you could say that for yourself, for your family, for your church, for your community.
In my case, as the head of the household, it's even more responsible because if I sin, then it hurts my whole family.
Oh yeah, we feel it pretty quick. If he's off, if he's off his mark, the rest of us are off our mark. It's the same way with any of us. If I'm not working up to par on keeping myself where I need to be, it bleeds into the family really quick and bleeds out into my work and everything else. If we're in a really bad place, even our animals are going to be impacted in our farm and everything else. So the closer we stay to Christ, who is life itself and all light and reason and love and good and justice and right, the more you see that in your own life, the closer you stay to him. You get off track through sin.
Yes.
And when you're off track, you're disconnected from that life and that body and that reason and that goodness and that love. And you start acting that way. So you become real hateful and nasty and yucky and poopy and bleh. That tells you, if I feel like I'm getting too nasty and yucky, that tells me I need to go clean out. So if you think of yourself like a container,
we are containers,
and you put really good healthy things in here, you're going to do really good healthy things. If you fill this up with mud and dirt and nasty, you're going to become mud, dirt, and nasty. So the Catholic Church, well, Jesus left us gifts called sacraments to help us stay close to him. And the one that you're working on is called the Sacrament of Reconciliation.
If you didn't hear that, she said the Sacrament of Reconciliation.
Ta-da! So it is where you clean out. So it's not fun. It isn't fun, and it's not supposed to be. It actually is an act of humility. You sin in your pride, so you are embracing an action of humility. That's why we go in front of a real person, and we don't like telling people what we do wrong. Oh, I hate it. I am so awesomely right all the time. Everybody else is wrong all the time, and I know it all. That's my family will be like, and she actually means it. Well, imagine my confessions of father mostly have to deal with my pride. So I don't like telling anybody I'm sorry, or that's just me. Maybe you like to do that.
Well, a good way to practice reconciliation is to talk to your parents or your siblings and tell them when you do something wrong or you feel like you've been wronged by them, I guess you can. So it's both ways. You can say, I'm sorry if I hurt your feelings.
Yes.
Or, maybe you didn't physically hurt them, but you can hurt people's feelings. And so you have to be very careful of that. That doesn't mean if they're doing something wrong, you can't tell them, hey, you're doing something wrong.
Yeah, it's going to
You
hurt
should
their
stop that.
feelings, but in that part, if you are helping them stay out of sin, you're actually not doing a sin, which is called the sin of omission. So most people will call it, well, you're judging me. I'm like, no, I'm helping you along. It's called filial correction, brotherly correction. Judging is not anything any human can do. There's only one judge, and that is only one person who's going to judge and give judgment, and that is God. The rest of us kind of have to support each other and help each other out.
It's like when mom and dad try and help you learn something. They're correcting you. And then they critique you. They let you know, okay, that was good, but let's try and do it a little better
this
next
time.
And so that's what's called a critique.
Yeah, Sylvia, you love it. Is it your most favorite thing in the whole world is when you're being corrected or taught?
Absolutely. Yeah, no, it's not.
It's awful. Oh my gosh, when she was little, she'd get her butt whooped. But
I was bad.
Oh my gosh.
Admittedly, I still am. So
but the difference is, as you get older, the more and more you're like getting it. It's a slow process. It takes a whole lifetime to get what Jesus is trying to teach us all. And one of the things to help get there quicker is cleaning out the cup. Going in front of the priest, embracing and hugging on to that act of humility, going in front of the priest in our sorrowfulness, which is called contrite. We're being sorry because we saw something we were doing that wasn't so good, and we want to admit it and fix our relationship with Christ. So the priest is a person, we need a material, that means our actual person, to sit there in front of us because we are here on earth. We're not in heaven yet. And to have an actual person to admit something to helps with the process. However, the process of reconciliation doesn't start there. Reconciliation starts with Jesus before. The moment you start feeling, oh, I shouldn't have done that. I shouldn't have said that. Ooh, that felt gross after I did that. I feel yucky. I feel bad. That's when you know God is working, because when you detach from God, we don't like it at all. Our souls hate it, actually. So when we detach from God, we feel bad. Now, here's the kicker. If you don't do something about that bad feeling, you will keep doing bad and lose the ability to even tell you're doing bad if you get too coated in sin. So a little sin can build to a lot of sin. So making sure you know when to clean the cup out and you go and clean the cup out is a really good practice to get into, and that's what you guys are gonna be
But
doing.
it's like cleaning a glass that you're drinking out of.
I don't want to drink out of a cocky glass.
I know, but if you don't clean it well, so in other words, if you
Make it
don't get
soak.
everything else out, which is what you should try and do, then it starts to get a little film on it.
Oh, it gets
And then that
cocky.
film grows deeper and deeper until, pretty soon
Yeah.
you're not
It's hard to clean it.
all the way clean. So you
Oh,
need to make
yeah.
sure that it's cleaned out
Yeah, so you want
quite
to
often.
really think about, keep track. So
But we just went,
Yeah.
because of the beginning of Lent, we like to
Yeah.
start out nice and clean. And so we went the day, Tuesday, which happened to
any
be,
kind of big thing you're doing,
yeah, true.
any kind of big decision you're doing as a person, let's say you're graduating into the next grade level, then that means, hey, I probably should go to confession. So I'm moving into it and I'm all clean and same with your parents. We're building a new house. We got to make a good decision about something. Go to confession first. Make sure you're all the way clean so you get blessings for what you're doing here. What else? It's a cleaning process.
We try and go once a month,
That is true.
but sometimes like this last time, it's only been 2 weeks
Well,
before Lent.
yeah.
And so we went to make sure that we didn't miss anything.
Well, I'd been absolutely ornery in those 2 weeks, pretty much, and got myself up in a big bundle of mess. It just wasn't very clean, and it wasn't going anywhere. And
So you can go more often.
yeah,
if
so
you,
I had to go. Somebody said, "Hey, you want to go to confession?" I'm like, "Yeah, I really need to go, and Lent's coming up, and I want to be able to do what I need to do for Lent. So I need to go clean out."
Anyway, but we're going to there's a calendar of the first or the month of Lent, the first month here, that Father put out, and we're
Right.
going to scan it in and put it on the calendar because it's got some neat daily things, suggestions. I mean, you don't have to do them all, but there's some things on there that will give you some, just helps you work towards Lent to make a really, and it's got some really good ideas, things to do as an individual and things to do as a family.
Okay,
So,
that's awesome. I'll put that up
yeah,
too
I have to
in the
scan it in for
resources.
this.
So back to the cup before we end this video. I had a student come up to me at church and say, "Hey, I have to go to confession, but I don't feel like I have anything to confess." And I said, "Yeah, I get into that every single confession. Is I don't feel like I've done anything, mortal or wrong or whatever." And I said, "Well, that's not always the case." I said, "Here's a good way of figuring out what you can do and where you're at is you look at other people. And for example, if I am like looking at Roy, I'm like, oh my gosh, you're so lazy, honey. And you are, let's see, what else can I make up? You're so mean and spiteful and ornery and blah, blah, blah. And
most of the times he is none of those things.
He really isn't any of those things. But I'm using him as an example. So I'm thinking that stuff, and my guardian angel, ooh, he wallops me sometimes. So if I think of that stuff, and he's like, "Well, sounds familiar to me, Carrie Lynn," and I'm like, "What do you mean it sounds familiar to you, Angel?" And he'll be like, "You need to think about what you're saying and apply that to you." And I'm like, oh. So what I'm thinking about other people when they do something wrong, it gives me an opportunity to think about myself and be like, am I ornery and spiteful and all those things? And what I usually find is that I am and I have been. So the way I think of people is a good reflection of my own self. So if I take those things, those might be unconfessed sins that I need to confess. So Father got a whole list this last time of unconfessed sins because I started doing that little practice of things I was thinking judgmentally about other people. I applied them to myself, and I had a whole laundry list of things a page and a half of things to confess to Father. What the girl said in response when I taught her that little exercise. She's like, oh my gosh, my brother. I said, yeah, look at your brother. So anything that annoys you about your brother, identify those things, put a name on them, and apply them to yourself. And what you'll find if you think, and you have to pray to Jesus, show me where I was like that. You will find a whole treasure trove of sins to offer up to Jesus to be forgiven for. So that's another way of examining your conscience, which is like we did last week. So good.
Good. There's also, and if it's not already on there, during the Lent season, right before Easter, when they do the reconciliation services, they usually have it's a list, and it goes it's a list that goes by the 10 Commandments, and it says these are the things under this commandment. These are the things. Because sometimes when we think about the 10 Commandments, we say, well, how does that apply to our daily life? Well, what this list does, and it's 2 pages, I think.
It is, and I posted that,
Did you already post it?
yeah, and I posted some for children and parents and all kinds of folks in your resources. So those examinations of conscience are really excellent to use.
They are very good.
I love it when I go into Father. I'm like, Father, I can't believe I'm just under this mortal sin of killing. I just want to kill everybody, and he's looking at me like, you are a complete nut. And I don't want to physically do any of that, but what I'm doing is I just don't want to be around people, and I think bad things about people, and I'm like, that's actually under the sin of that mortal sin. Like, I was like, oh my gosh. I'm like, how is that, Father? And when I went back to Mass after confession, Jesus, my angel in Mass, said I hadn't been suffering enough. I hadn't been doing enough penance and sacrifice and suffering. So because I wasn't suffering, I have all this bitterness that's built up, and I have to open myself up to little acts of suffering, like, no, I don't need that extra 5 pieces of cake, or I don't need to sleep in until 10, or oh, that'd be horrible. But I have to give up some of my comforts, and I have to suffer more. So I'm embracing moments of suffering, like getting up now and not being lazy, or doing the dishes when I really don't want to at all, changing the empty toilet paper roll. So those are little acts of suffering, and you'll notice if you're open to those little penances, you will do less sin. So those are all really good practices to do. Now I just have to work on the cuss jar. So here's another thing. I have a cuss jar that if I get too far out, I really have a potty mouth. Yes. And if I find I'm cussing too much when I'm mad, I have to put a quarter in my cuss jar. And Roy gives me quarters. A quarter for each swear word. So anytime I find myself cussing, I put a quarter in the quarter jar. My cuss jar goes to Father, and it goes into the money goes into the basket at church. So it tells Father how much cussing I have improved on, and
not the cussing, but how much less.
How much less cussing I've improved, and Father gets the my work of penance to benefit the church. So those are some things. I know that sounds like really bad. I can't believe you cuss, Mrs. Leonard. I'm like, yeah, when I get mad, I'm awful. Ask anybody. But it helps me to not get mad because I don't want to spend Roy's quarters. So I don't mind spending them to the church whatsoever. So how about you? Anything that works for you? Staying away from sin?
Yeah, avoiding the near occasion.
Yeah.
And sometimes you have to stop doing things.
Last night with the popcorn.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Sylvia and I caught him with popcorn. So do you want to talk to him about your popcorn sin?
Well, no, I didn't get after I put it in the microwave. I was, because we started Lent. We're doing 1 meal a day, and
no garbage food.
No garbage food.
No junk food.
I said, is popcorn junk food? And I guess it can be.
Yeah, he said, well, I went down to mom's apartment, I got it. And I'm like, there you go. If it's down in mom's apartment, it could quite possibly be junk food.
So we were out. So
'Cause
we
she buys
normally
a
have
lot
some.
of sugary snacks.
She does, and she bestows them on us. So we're not doing those right now. So
We tell her not to, but she doesn't listen.
right, and Roy's the same way. So for a
I
moment,
couldn't buy anything.
he had to think about it. Like he really like, oh, junk food, because he likes to snack. So today you did what? You bought, instead of junk food, you bought what?
Oh, fruits and vegetables.
And carrots, yeah.
And a steak.
Vegetables.
Yeah, it was awesome. So he's replacing his junk food, so he's eating better. So that's a real small sin. You're kind of the same way with the staying away. Like, so for your sin, you don't have to name it, but the best thing you find is staying with people, right? So when she's dealing with stuff, she'll come and she'll be around us a lot. Because if you get by yourself, that's a place where you could get in trouble, is when you're not in communion or with community. So it's good to be not a hermit and to make sure
unless
you're
you're
people.
using that opportunity to pray.
Yes,
Because
that's
it even
true.
says that in the scriptures about, go by yourself and pray. Even Jesus did that multiple. Well, he tried to multiple times, and then it got harder and harder to do that. But anyway.
Yeah. So sometimes you need to go by yourself so you can recharge from people, but one of the ways to stay out of sin is to be around people. So that's a really good way.
Unless that's your sin, then you stay away.
Well,
But
I
if
think
you're
it
young,
depends on who you choose as people to be
true,
around.
true.
I don't think your mom and dad would be
No,
too bad, right?
you should be pretty good.
Cool. All right. We'll see you next time.
All right. God bless. Talk to you
Bye-bye.
later.